There's a point at which you can go crazy, and I've passed that point, and I'm not really 100% sure that I'm still on Earth. I mean, I could be in hell, and how you can tell if you're in hell is basically that nobody ever interacts with you. The interactions are rather shallow. Um, and people may look at your content. Um, you may have interactions with other people, say on a video game server, but they never developed into anything serious. And then you come to the realization that the whole thing was a test from the very beginning. That it was a test to see if you have the what's if you have what is necessary in order to live a meaningful life and be, you know, and so if you're largely being ignored, you're probably in hell. Um, However, I've not had a problem with being alone or communicating stuff, even if I think that it's not completely interpreted or absorbed. People might thank me for providing information, but whether somebody thanked me for the information or whether they didn't, to me it's all the same because it'll never develop into anything more than that. There will not be an actual relationship. We'll never know each other, and that's the way the internet is. It may be the case that the internet will never be anything more than a method by which information gets transferred, but it could the internet could either be something more meaningful or it could be something that is just passive information, passive useless information. And the question what is reality, um, and I get the feeling that there was this animation that was put out in the 90s called Bingo. It went with the demonstration of the Maya computer animation software, and in Bingo you get the idea of what, in the way the artist presented the videos. It's a circus act. Every single um, every single casting of actors is to see if they can play the part of somebody in a show. But then, as they say, the world's a stage and everybody's actors. There's a kind of a metaphysical reference in that, and that is, you were born to be an actor on that stage, and if you're the star of the show, how are you going to handle being the star of the show? Are you going to be humble, or are you going to be somebody who's super arrogant and think you're hot stuff? And how you handle being in the spotlight is going to determine whether or not the world is going to listen to you um, or forget you. And being in hell is when your usefulness uh, as being in the spotlight, your usefulness while you were in the spotlight um, was determined if you were useful or not useful or useless. If you were useless, then you largely get forgotten. How are you going to deal with the aftermath where people don't really give a shit about you? And, you know, you look back on your life and was it, did you have a positive effect or did you have a negative effect? And some people will commit suicide and some people will just live life. And I could look back on my life and have complete depression about where I've been. And the devil is called the devil for such that the devil's like a fly in your eye, in your ear that constantly nags you and says you're worthless. You're, you know, you might as well give up now. You might as well commit suicide or something like that. Beelzebub was actually a onomatopoeia, a word that represents a sound. Um, that's where the name come from. It was a Hebrew onomatopoeia sound that references, it's a word that references something that makes a sound, and Beelzebub is the sound that a fly makes in your ear, and this is what the devil spends most of its time doing, is distracting you from your life and trying to remind you that you're worthless. You know, that spend all the time saying that you're forgotten, you're in hell. The definition of hell in the biblical sense is when God is no longer present in your world. Um, but it says in the Bible that God's always present. God's always there. So this could be a test to see how I'm able to still be relevant even whenever God is not is playing hands off, is not. God may have involvement, God may not be involved. How am I going to deal in the cases where God's not there? And that's how I come to interpret where I'm at in my life right now, and that is the area of time after I've done really badly in the spotlight. I'm not unforgivable. I'm just forgotten. Okay. Now, there are people that listen to me sing and think I'm great, but I don't know really how to take that. And if I take it to a high degree, then I'm going to be like I was when I was in the spotlight a long time ago, whenever I was doing computer animation and abused that, um, abused my position, abused my belief of what I was and what I could be and all that. Realizing that everything was real, or believing everything was real. And it's my belief that this reality is just a test to see how you would deal with responsibility. And I'm largely irresponsible. But my responsibility, I feel, to others would be um, one who might give you tips or might give you ideas and things that I've just come up with, things that might help. That's my way of trying to attempt to be relevant. even though I might be completely irrelevant. I'm living, I'm breathing, I'm living life, I'm enjoying what I can. There's no reason to commit suicide. Although all the demons in the world are going to whisper in my ear, why not commit suicide? I said, because I still have life. And while I have life, I have reason to live. And it's, you kind of wish that they would stop bothering you, you know, but they always come back and they're always in your ear and they're always, whispering, you're completely, God's already forgotten about you. It's like, they're like the Hanoi Hannas. During the Vietnam War, there was this lady called Hanoi Hannah that was trying to break the will of the soldiers from America that were there to push out the communism that was occurring, the communistic influence that was occurring in Vietnam. And I think that's what it was. And the people in Vietnam that didn't really like some enjoyed their occupation of Vietnam. Some of them didn't like them being there, figured that they could do well by themselves. And the organization that they were fighting against had this lady who would sit there and talk on and on about why their value in being there, what it was, and basically breaking their will by saying, your your government doesn't really care for you. You were put in this war not because you wanted to, but because you were drafted. And you might as well go home because, you know, there's not, you're not going to win this war and blah, blah, blah. And that's what she did. And the purpose she did that for was so that their side, it's called psych ops. It's psychological operations. It's trying to cause the other side to give up by reminding them all the things that they tell themselves anyhow. But then it's completely made, it's wisdom, maybe, but it's really discouragement. And that's Satan's best tool, is discouraging you, is in whether I am relevant in that I'm helping people in the world, or irrelevant that I'm not helping people in the world. Both are irrelevant because I'm trying to do what I believe is good, and that is what I can give, and that is inspiration into a world of darkness that has these flies flying around into the ears of people and saying you're worthless, you're not going to be of any good. I'm not a good representation of that, but this is the best I can do. And my father said, you know, what the best you can do is the best you can do. If you can't do anything more than that, then, don't be so hard on yourself. Do the best you can. And as far as I'm concerned, considering all of my limitations and, and problems and stuff, this is the best that I can do, is to have this YouTube, because I don't believe, I've lost faith in the world. Let's put it that way. I've lost faith that there's a world out there for me, that there is a potential for me. I've lost faith in that. And I get my money from a trust, and until that trust ceases to exist, I probably won't have any reason to go out and get a job. And so for me, it's satisfying to have a constant feed of money that permits me to be kind of a bum But then I can take what I know or what I believe I know and to take my talent that I can put out and put it into a form that people can access it and make use of it. Whether it's going to help people get to heaven or not, I don't know. But for me, it's in my mind, it is the best that I can do. And um, it's why I live. Is the and the very basics. Even if you feel like nobody's listening, the being able to hear your own voice, the feedback of your voice is enough because you know you've said it. Whether or not other people take it in, that'll be a joyous day whenever somebody comes in and says, "This really helped me out," blah, 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 and they come back to you and say that. But it may not ever happen for me. It may be that I really am in hell and that I'm largely being ignored and that there's nobody out there in the world. That's why we send out bottles of messages in the water, is because we believe when we start out, we believe that nobody's out there for us. It's what causes people to commit suicide. They feel like they are of no worth to anybody else, but they have no real idea who they have worth to. It's just that the people that they have worth to are not coming forth and inspiring them, are not giving them a tip. They're not giving them some sort of thing, a token, to help them realize that they're there, that they're present. If you're in a grocery store and somebody's bagging your groceries, they those people understand their job as kind of on minimum wage, and they're not making enough money to get by. Sometimes they're mentally retarded. Sometimes they're just out of work and that this is the only thing they're able to do. But when somebody recognizes them and say thank you for bagging my groceries, I couldn't have done this without you, or it gives you a tip, that's when they feel present and relevant where they're at. And there's somebody will say, well, that's a smidgen. Look, everybody in the world that is able to help you along is relevant to your you being there. And if you don't give them relevance, somewhere down the road you will be irrelevant to the world. And that's where I'm at. Is I'm questioning my relevance. And all these demons are sitting around me saying, you're completely irrelevant. You might as well commit suicide because you have no relevance to the world. But the thing is what's important to me? Being relevant in the world or being relevant to myself? To me, my relevance is that I'm alive and that I'm able to enjoy life. That's enough. That should be enough. Anything on top of that is just extraneous. It's extra stuff. It Hell, if you inspire somebody, great. You can pat yourself on the back. If you didn't, so. Interacting, simple feedback, interacting with people in your life is enough. People that are able to say hi, that when people interact with you, that's enough. That's enough to say I'm relevant. I'm I feel good being alive, because death is not is realizing you have no capacity to have choice. In death, you have no choice. You There's a question whether or not you have consciousness in death. Death could be the real end. It could be an entry point into another existence. But how would I be able to tell now if I'm dead or alive? And, you know, to me, I'm alive because I'm able to make choices. When I'm not able to make choices, whether relevant or irrelevant, if I'm not able to, if I'm able to make choices, either relevant or irrelevant, doesn't matter to me, I'm able to enjoy life. When I'm not able to make any more choices is when time ends. Time is the capacity to make change, to change the time, to make choices, to do things. That is what time is. It's the capacity to make a difference from one second to another, to move forward. That is time. And when you're dead, time stops. And it stops because you're unable to make any more choices. So that's the difference between being alive and being dead. Is when you're alive, you have the capacity to make choices. When you're dead, you have no more choices left. You have no choice but to be dead. You're at the end of it. You can't get any more. You can't get any more experience. That's it. And so why commit suicide? Why not accept the gift of life and live, whether you feel like you're valuable or not? To you, you're valuable, right? There's still things that you can do that entertain you, right? That would be a good reason why not to commit suicide. For me, whenever I was contemplating committing suicide, I said to myself, in order to kind of save myself from that burden of how to commit suicide and all that stuff, is I basically said, well, what if I committed suicide and I woke up at the point at which I was going to commit suicide? So I was basically saying to myself, it's completely futile to commit suicide because I still have the capacity to be alive, and I have this. There are things that I enjoy doing. There's reasons to be alive. There, and that is to enjoy life. And if you can't enjoy life, then there's probably no reason to be alive. If there's not a glimmer of something that makes you feel good in your reality, then there's probably no reason to live. And that's what separates the people that can't deal with life and the people who can. And the mustard seed of faith, I believe, in the Bible is getting up in the morning and going forward. The ability to face each day and to enjoy that day is the mustard seed of faith. That's what moves mountains. That gets you up in the morning to walk some amount of distance, and you're able to move that obstacle from here to back there. And then you look back on the day and you see all the obstacles that you moved past, all the mountains you moved.